Hi, this video is for industrial design at RMIT, and it's intended as a recap video from what we learnt in class. It's going to look at shrink-wrap modifiers and adding vertex weights for shrink-wrap modifiers in Blender. This is data that has come from Gravity Sketch as an FBX and then imported and separated into parts. So what we'll do is we'll look at the toe box cover. We'll look at this piece that wraps around the backside of the model that ties to this boa design. And then we'll also look at this back strap where we will see how to shrink this on with vertexes, vertex weighting, and not have this part affected. So without further ado, let's get modeling. Okay, so what I've got here is just the simple parts of our model that we'll require, and there is only subdivision applied to these parts that we discussed. So the first thing we'll look at is here with the toe box. You can note that there's a gap in the modeling, and in Gravity Sketch all that we had to do was to model the surface for the toe box above the upper, and that we didn't have to really match it on because we're going to do this in Blender. And we're going to do that with a, just click on it, we're going to do that with a modifier, and we're going to do it with a Shrinkwrap modifier under the form Shrinkwrap, and we're going to apply this Shrinkwrap modifier to our model. So the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to keep it on nearest surface. We could project it, but we'll leave it on that. We'll snap to surface. We could snap outside or above, and we'll choose our target. So here we'll click on the eyedropper, and our target is the upper, and you can see here that it's shrunk on to the upper. And we can set an offset for the shrink wrap. So if we put it, say, at 1 millimeter, you can see here that it's shrink wrapped on and it's offset by 1 mil. Now I think that the thickness of the material might be 0.5 or a little bit more. So what I might do is make the offset say 0.5 mm, and just pull it in a little bit closer. So now that we've got that shrink wrapped down towards our model, what we'll do is we'll add another modifier, and we'll generate and use the solidify. Now in the solidify, by default, if we come down here to the offset and we make that bigger, you'll note that the offset is 10 millimeters. So if we make this 1 mm, now we're offset the thickness is 1 millimeter, and if we make the offset roughly 0.5, we can bring it in and we can get the crease so that it's just nicely this roundness halfway, just sort of nicely into our surface. So you can see here that if we look at it, we want to roughly get it halfway in. Now the other thing that we'll apply is another subdivision modifier, because if we look at the mesh, we can see that there's this hard edge along here. So if we go to add modifier, and if we go to generate subdivision, we can add 2 levels of subdivision to it, because this is just a rendering sort of model, preview model. Now if we come back, we can see that it's nice and smooth, and it transitions like it's a, it could be a molded piece of silicone or something that's sitting on top. Now let's try this again, and we'll do it for this part here. I'm just going to change the color of this part. So I'm just going to remove this material, add a new material, and maybe make it yellowish. Oh, I'm not in a render preview, am I? No. Go to render preview. Yeah, okay, so now it's in this yellow color. So what we want to do is give this a thickness. And we can see all my colors have come in. Now you can see how far the gap is here. It's huge, this gap. So we're going to use the Shrinkwrap Modifier. So let's just click on here, go to Modifiers, go to Add Modifier, Deform, Shrinkwrap, leave it all just standard, click on the eyedropper, click on the upper. Now you can see that it's pulled it directly down onto the upper. And let's give it an offset of 0.5 mm. And then we want to give this a thickness. So I think a thickness of probably about 3 mm, since it's going to be a strong kind of pre-molded leather material. Add modifier, generate, and solidify. And again, remember the thickness needs to be 3 mm. Enter. The offset, we'll put it to 1. And we'll just zoom in and have a look. Maybe 3 mils too much. I'll leave it at 3 mil for now. Let's just reduce the offset so that it just sort of touches into the material. And again, we can see the sharp edge. So let's add, generate, subdivision, add a subdivision modifier, and we will make that 2 levels of subdivision. And we'll just look in here, and maybe our leather's rounded. It's had a process applied to it. And then now we've made the leather material. And now what we'll do is we'll look at this back piece, and we will look at how to apply some vertex weight under the data panel and add vertex groups here. So what we'll do is we will just go into edit mode, and on this piece we're going to select some vertexes. So we'll just go to Vertex, and I know basically that I want to select these vertexes here. I think these ones inside, if I pull those up, this might just jump a little bit, so we'll just have a look. We can always go back and add them in again. And then up here, we'll go Shift, and we'll select those ones, and I might select, we'll shift these ones here. Okay, so now what we can do is in our vertex group, we can add a vertex group, and we can assign those vertexes to this group. Now that they're assigned, we can go out of edit mode, and we can apply under modifiers, add a modifier, deform, shrink wrap, and let's get our target, which will be the upper. And you'll note that it's pulled everything down, but don't worry. Come to the vertex group, and there's the group that we made under the data panel. Click on it, and now you can see that all that's come back into shape, but this one's been pulled down. And let's set the offset to 0.1 mm. Maybe we want it to 0.5 mm. And now that area has been pulled perfectly onto our design, because it's going to be stitched on, right? It's going to have stitching that runs down here. It could be bonded and glued as well. And now we want to add a generate, solidify. Of course, we don't want it to be a thickness of 10. We want it to be a thickness of 1 mm. Maybe, actually, it's probably 0.8 mm. And we can set the thickness going out. I wonder how thick a strap really is. Probably not. It's probably 0.6 mm, depending. You can get a vernier caliper and you can actually measure the thickness. And again, this is all going to be hard creased edges. So what we want to do is to add another shrink wrap subdivision and give it 2 levels of subdivision. Now if we zoom in here, we can see that it's sitting above, just in here. Just let me bring it closer. Whoop, careful. Okay, we can see here it's sitting above. Like you can see here there's clipping, so if we go to view and we add an extra 0 in the clipping start and press enter, now that won't clip and we can come a lot closer to our model and it won't clip. So go back to item. And what we can do here is we can go back to either the shrink wrap or the solidify, and we can adjust the offset value in the solidify and just bring it back until it just touches like that. Okay, and then let's go and check the other end. It looks good. So now what we've been able to do is we've used the Vertex group in our Shrinkwrap modifier to pull certain sections on to our model. And it's an amazing feature. We can use it for all sorts of things. So even in here, on this part, what we could do is hide the solidify, hide the subdivision, and you can see here it goes down in underneath. So what we could do is we could add a modifier. Add a modifier, deform, shrink wrap. Just reorganize it so that it comes before the solidify. So we just grab the little dotted bar, pull it up, and we want to set the target with the eyedropper as this object here. Again, it's flattened it. So what we want to do is go back here, press tab, then come in and select, just turn it around. Actually, we could isolate everything by pressing the /. Let's select using shift, just select these vertices here. Just go around and select them, holding shift. Okay, and go to data, add a vertex group and assign those points to this group. We may need to assign the next level in as well, but we'll see how we go. And let's get out of edit mode. Press the / to re-show everything. We can see that it's completely shrunk our model down. So we'll go back into the modifiers and add the vertex group. And now we can see that it's pulled it in and it's all popped back up. And we can adjust the offset. We need to do it very slowly, 0.001 mm. No, that's way too much. 0.1 mm. Yeah, that looks alright. And then turn back on the solidify, turn back on the subdivision, and now we've got our model. The texture is really bad. It's not a very good texture at all. This must be in development model. And there we can see that we've now effectively shrink wrapped these parts onto our model. And as we can see here, to just recap on our video, we've got all our materials applied. We've got our leather, we've got this nice little topology map. We've got all of our stitching added in. We've got our fur for the top of the boot. Quite, good project that, it's currently ski season here in Australia. And we've got our backdrop with graphic applied and our displacements. So in the next class and the next video, we'll look at how to displace a mesh and how to get this effect here using a texture map. Alright, have a good one.